Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and we've been robbed of a Diablo Netflix series, Starcraft and Overwatch 2. We'll talk about all that, as well as the most devastating news in the Diablo 4 patch notes, plus more gaming news of the week. In case you missed it, I posted my review of Diablo 4's expansion Vessel of Hatred yesterday. Do check that out, and in case you haven't been keeping up with Diablo 4 in general, you can find all of my info videos and guides and everything consolidated on my website, Rhykker.com, which brings us to a word from this video's sponsor, Squarespace. I built my website using Squarespace, and I was able to do everything myself, quickly and easily, and with zero education in the field, all thanks to how easy Squarespace is to work with. Squarespace even has a new AI tool called Design Intelligence, which combines 2 decades of industry-leading web design expertise with the latest AI tech to empower you to build a beautiful-looking website that is personalized and made just for your needs and your unique identity. Squarespace even has optimized SEO tools so that you can launch your website and start getting views as quickly as possible. It's flexible for any kind of website with tons of design options to pick from. You can easily connect all your social accounts and upload your video content and organize your video library. You can sell products or services. And with Squarespace Payments, you have an easy way to manage your payments in one place. You're just a few clicks away from being able to receive payments through your website, all while offering customers popular payment methods like Apple Pay, ClearPay, Afterpay, Klarna, and ACH Direct Debit. Basically, if you want to build a website, I recommend Squarespace. So head to squarespace.com/Rhykker or click the link in the description to start your free trial and use code Rhykker to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/RHYKKER and use code Rhykker. Now, diving into the Diablo 4 news, we had a massive dev stream on Wednesday that revealed all the details about the upcoming Season 6 theme, as well as all the new features coming with the expansion Vessel of Hatred. I've got a full video breakdown of that stream. Do check that out. As I mentioned as well, I also have my review of Vessel of Hatred, and I'm going to have more video content, guides, and such in the future very soon as well to check out as well. Outside of my own review, reviews from critics have been coming in, and they're pretty positive. On OpenCritic, we see an average critic score of 86 out of 100, with 94% of critics recommending the expansion. Now, one thing that's important to keep in mind, however, is that a lot of the improvements coming with the expansion are also coming with the base game, the patch 2.0. So, in general, a lot of the positive recommendations are just for the state of Diablo 4 with patch 2.0, plus the expansion content, as opposed to just the expansion content is getting these ringing endorsements. If you haven't played Diablo 4 since Season 2 or earlier, the game is massively improved since then. The Spiritborn is a really fun class. I think the best designed class so far in the game. I'll have a build guide coming out soon on the build that I ran. Pro player Rob believes the class is currently way overpowered. He estimates 10 times stronger than the Sorcerer, which he thinks is the second strongest class right now, with Barbarian being the weakest in Season 6. Rob also estimates it'll take top players between 40 to 80 hours to reach the max Paragon level of 300, or about 200 hours for a casual player. Also, Torment 4 Infernal Hordes is much harder than the highest difficulty Infernal Hordes currently available in Season 5, with enemy health being about 10 times what it is on live servers. But the Season 6 theme it's pretty cool. It is the Season of Hatred, which sees the return of Realm Walkers from Diablo 3. Those are those big monsters that have the portal on them, and they are back bigger and cooler than ever. These spawn in as a world event. They show up very regularly. And what happens is the Realm Walker pops out of the ground and walks around the map. As he's walking, he's spawning monsters for you to defeat until eventually he becomes targetable himself. You take him down along with other people in the region. He's not as tough as a world boss, maybe Blood Maiden level of difficulty roughly. So you take him down and then he leaves behind a portal. You take that portal into a mini dungeon in which you get to then make a choice midway through of what kind of reward you want. And at the end, you get these customized rewards, as well as these consumables, these special seasonal consumables that you can pop. And for 30 minutes, you gain an XP buff and another kind of reward, depending on what you picked. So it could be that you have more gold drops during this period, or more material drops, more item drops, stuff like that. Also, while under the effect of this consumable, all monsters you kill count towards this season's reputation track. So rather than have to do a very specific activity for this season's reputation track, it's all about you having the choice to do whatever you want. You just gotta pop that consumable. And if you run out, well, just go fight another Realm Walker. Then the free Battle Pass rewards for this season look great. They're pirate themed, including an actual peg leg boot cosmetic. Honestly, my favorite earnable cosmetics in the game yet. Well, apart from the ones you can earn in the Dark Citadel for free. That's the raid event. Then we also got the full patch notes after the dev stream, and there's a couple more interesting tidbits hidden away in there, like we're getting 2 extra character slots. Also, Duriel and Andariel will now have twice the chance to drop a mythic item relative to the other Tormented bosses. As a reminder, Stygian Stones don't exist anymore. There's only one version of these Tormented bosses now. They become available once you reach Torment difficulty, and on higher Torments, they are harder and also have better drop rates. And it definitely makes more sense for Duriel and Andariel to have higher drop rates since they are more challenging bosses and it's harder to get their materials. But the most noteworthy thing from the patch notes, RIP Lightning Spear Sorcerers. Long live the king! This build was super OP and now it is getting nerfed in multiple ways. Maybe a smidge too aggressively, we'll see. The Fractured Winter Glass, the key unique item behind this build, has had its cooldown for Conjuration affix removed entirely, and it's swapped out for All Resist. Big ouch right there. Then the Lightning Spear Temper recipe has been changed from chance for Lightning Spear to cast twice to now instead deal double damage. You might think, well, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, you know, what's the difference? Apart from procs, this is actually devastating because this build's damage doesn't come from Lightning Spear. It doesn't matter that we're buffing Lightning Spear damage, all of our damage is coming from the splintering aspect. So now this temper recipe does nothing for this build. But wait, there's more. Only 12 Lightning Spears can now exist at one time. Any new ones will replace the oldest one. So, multiple nerfs here. Overall, pretty heavy. That said, again, this build was overpowered. A nerf was warranted. Is this build still going to be good? It might still be good. It just may no longer be competitive with the best builds in the game. But hey, don't worry too much about it because I can guarantee you there's going to be some new OP build for us all to play. Now, as a reminder, Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred and Season 6 launch next week at the same time. It's going to be on October 7th, actually, for some people. 4 p.m. Pacific, that's 7 p.m. on the East Coast, or midnight in London. Also, folks, if you want some free cosmetics in Diablo 4, from October 8th to November 5th, you can get cosmetics just by watching Twitch streams. There'll be new cosmetics to farm up every week. You gotta watch at least 3 hours a week to earn the cosmetics of the week. You can watch me at twitch.tv/Rhykker. Also during this time period, if you buy or gift 2 subs, you get this horse, and 4 subs will get you the horse armor as well. Now, Blizzard also released a cinematic trailer this week for the expansion, as well as a live action trailer. And I thought the live action trailer was CGI at first. It's so much more impressive when you realize this was all done in live action. I mean, obviously there's effects, but the actors are live action actors. There's practical effects going on, there's actual gymnastics, and they gave us a behind the scenes video as well, which really lets you appreciate just how cool and awesome this was to put together. And it was directed by John Watts, who is known for his work on the Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy. And altogether, it really makes you wonder, what could have been? See, a few years ago, rumors emerged of a Diablo Netflix series in the works. We covered that pretty extensively back in the day. The short version is we had very, very, very good reason to believe that this was true. And then we heard nothing for the longest time. Then, something like 8 months later, a story emerged that Activision Blizzard was suing Netflix for poaching executives. And at that point, we guessed that, well, that meant the end of any relationship between Netflix and Blizzard. Kinda hard to make a series together when you are suing the company. Well, thanks to Jason Schreier's latest book, this one right here, Play Nice, the rise, fall, and future of Blizzard Entertainment. Come into focus, please. Yeah. We spoke about this book a lot in our last week video. Do check it out. Short version, I highly recommend this for any Blizzard fan, past or present. anyone who still cares about Blizzard in some way. But basically, Jason Schreier has confirmed that yes, this is exactly what happened. There was a Diablo series in development, and the lawsuit terminated the relationship. Now, whether it would have been a live-action series like the cinematic we just saw, the Fallout series on Amazon was amazing as a live-action, or if it was something like the League of Legends Arcane series, or the Cyberpunk Edgerunner series, or Castlevania, whatever style it went with, the potential was grand. Hopefully, one day, something can happen there. In fact, why can't Blizzard's cinematic department do something? They got arguably the best-in-class cinematic department in the entire gaming industry. Also, according to Schreier, there would have been an Overwatch and even a Starcraft series. That one's the biggest crime. Starcraft, man. I love that franchise. I used to love Starcraft even more than Diablo, if you can believe it. And again, also from Schreier's book, we know that Starcraft almost was a Star Wars RTS. Yeah, for a couple of months, Blizzard was toying with the idea of making a Star Wars strategy game. They even made concept art with AT-ATs. But this idea eventually morphed into StarCraft, and thank goodness, honestly, I love Star Wars, but I'm happy that Blizzard spawned another one of my favorite sci-fi franchises instead. And Blizzard's RTS team never gave up on making StarCraft 3 or Warcraft 4. Production director Tim Morton tried really hard for years. He kept pitching ideas and prototypes to the Activision Blizzard executives. Once, in his desperation, he even pitched a Call of Duty RTS. He just wanted to make a strategy game. But apparently there was, quote, no appetite among Blizzard's executive team for a new RTS game. Then Tim Morton left Blizzard in 2019 to co-found Frost Giant Studios and work on the RTS Stormgate, and a lot of Blizzard's RTS talent has left to either join Frost Giant or other studios at this point. Jason Schreier also confirmed that among the many projects that Blizzard has canceled over the years was Starblow. Blizzard North had begun working on a sci-fi ARPG after Diablo 2. Basically, they saw that Blizzard first made Warcraft in a fantasy setting, and then they basically remade Warcraft in a sci-fi setting as StarCraft, so the idea was to now move the ARPG to a sci-fi setting. And some of the Blizzard North folks did end up making Hellgate London, which is basically a sci-fi Diablo. Now, following up on last week's Ubisoft news, with their Star Wars game underperforming, and by the way, new info has come out that it has sold just 1 million copies, which really isn't a lot for a AAA Star Wars game, as well as them delaying the next Assassin's Creed to next year, and their stock plummeting to a 10-year low. Well, to pile on to the bad news, in a trading call update, Ubisoft has said that their FPS game X-Defiant is also performing below expectations. Not really surprising, given the game has a 70 out of 100 average critic score on OpenCritic. The Ubisoft special at this point, getting a very mediocre review score, and only about half of critics are recommending the game. And from a brief look at X-Defiant, it just seems like a pretty generic in a saturated market. Anyway, all of this has led to, allegedly, as per a Bloomberg report, the owners of the company considering a buyout. Ubisoft is controlled by the Guillemot family, headed up by Yves Guillemot. The Guillemot family owned 20.5% of the company, and they're apparently in talks with Tencent, the Chinese mega conglomerate that owns another 9.2% of Ubisoft. And we know that in the past, Tencent was interested in owning more of Ubisoft. So that's one option, a Tencent buyout. Another possibility, though, seems to be Tencent and the Guillemot family both selling their shares to another entity that would take the company private. I mentioned last week that this was a very real possibility, the sale of Ubisoft. And following Bloomberg breaking this story, Ubisoft shares rose 33%, with people expecting, oh, well, if they're going to sell the company, I want to get my bag too. It's kind of funny. Ubisoft made waves back in January when their director of subscriptions was talking about how we've, as consumers, gotten used to paying monthly subscriptions to access music and movies that we don't actually own, and that gamers need to, quote, feel comfortable with not owning your games. Well, seems people have gotten pretty darn comfortable with not owning Ubisoft games. In other news, the Starfield expansion, Shattered Space, released this week, and it's not doing well. It has mostly negative reviews on Steam, and on OpenCritic, the game has a 57 out of 100 average critic score, with only half of critics recommending it. Honestly, I don't see how half of critics are recommending the game when it's a 57 out of 100. That seems like very polarizing reviews. But this score is remarkably low because this is a AAA title, and it is major gaming news outlets that are giving low scores. Like, these are outlets that gave high scores to the base game. In general, people criticize these big review outlets of going soft on the big devs. So I think this really says something. Overall, reading through some of the feedback, it seems that the expansion just has too little content to justify its price tag, and that it's just boring. Compare that to the Silent Hill 2 remake that just came out, which is getting great reviews, 88 out of 100 average critic score on OpenCritic, with 91% of critics recommending it. And we'll end things today with a follow-up on the Nintendo suing Palworld story. Turns out the patented mechanic that Nintendo is suing over revolves around the catch and redeploy of monsters. And now they're actually filing for a patent on this mechanic in the US. Currently, they're only suing Palworld in Japan. Funny thing is, if the patent is rejected in the US, I believe that might mess up their case in Japan. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this week's video, folks. But do be sure to check out last week's video in which we discussed the full extent of how screwed Ubisoft is. Also, folks, we're doing the Patreon banner this year. Anyone who is a Patreon supporter by October 31st at patreon.com/Rhykker, even at the $1 pledge, will get your name on the shirt. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more gaming content.